I mean, what do you think? You think they stand a chance? You're on their side, aren't you? Who are you betting on,
Magic mirror on the wall, who is the fairest one of all?
Look at these lies.
One shall stand, one shall fall.
Even if one of them survives.
The only way to stop him is to make another movie.
Welcome to the Celluloid Mirror, a film discussion podcast presented by 4 Mile Circus, a media services company based in Brooklyn that produces original films, videos, podcasts, and more. On each episode of the Celluloid Mirror, we pair two very different films to see what they reflect about each other and the audience watching. I am one of your hosts, Sean Mannion.
And I am Nicole Solomon. I am the other one of your hosts. And on today's episode, we again have a very special guest, Yessica Curiel Montoya.
Hi, I am the rescue dog.
That is true, and Yessica is also an experienced DP with an extensive background as a gaffer for independent features, documentaries, and commercials. Her work as cinematographer has screened in film festivals around the world and received a Kodak Eastman Award in 2014. She's a Mexican immigrant and a proud Harlem resident in New York City. Hello!
Hi!
I was so happy to see you.
Greetings from Harlem. It's nice to see you guys.
Nice to see you. Someday this will happen in person, not with a computer. I hear.
One day.
Sounds,
it
big
feels
if
closer.
true.
It really feels so much closer now. I don't know. I don't want to get too hopeful, but it feels closer now.
Let us hope it is.
I got emotional the other day. I got very emotional the other day. Like, I know more and more people who have been vaccinated, and it makes me, I teared up the other day straight up.
I do all the time. And on that note, on today's episode, we will be discussing 1998 family comedy Babe, Pig in the City and Mad Max Fury Road. First, we will give you a quick synopsis of each film and outline the primary connections we see between them. Then we'll share our own reactions before diving into analysis of some of the shared themes. So we're supposed to give synopses of these films, but we haven't decided who's gonna synopsize which. So, any takers?
I really feel like Yessica can really handle both of them.
I mean, I wouldn't object.
I am gonna do a terrible job. Which one should I do first?
Your choice.
Start with Babe. Start with Babe, Pig in the City. Let's do it chronologically.
And now I will synopsisize Babe, Pig in the City, which is also known as Babe 2, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Which starts...
Correct.
So I thought I had seen the first one. And I think I did. But many years ago. Anyway, I saw the second one, and it's about the pig coming back home to the farm, having won something, and now people who didn't fuck with him, now fuck with him. And are like, oh yeah, we always loved you. We're gonna hang out with you. And then, in a very contrived plot twist thing, they now are about to lose the farm, and so now they have to save the farm. But the farmer dude can't come because he fell down a fucking water well, and then the bank wants to get the farm, and then the lady just goes to the big city to a competition thinking that, because just for showing up, they get money. But then a bunch of things happen. And then adventure happens more. And then, because it's a kid's film, things end up being, there's a happy ending. And expectations are readjusted. What? No, priorities? Whatever, what they want. kind of happens, but like how they get it changes. I told you it was going to be bad.
No, that's
This is
fantastic.
not bad. This is not bad. This is the opposite of bad.
That's easily one of the best
it's funny to
synopses
you.
I've heard all day.
Oh man, wait until I see you. I'm going to...
I mean, I'm sure I have a lot of that coming, so I'm, like, I might as well just accept it and lean into that.
What happens in Fury Road, Yessica?
Good. So much. There's a bunch of explosions. But it starts with also a call to adventure, but it's way more immediate, sort of, than in Babe. First of all, it starts with, like, you set the world where it's like a wasteland, and then Max is captured and taken to this place where there is like water and plants, but only one motherfucker and his friends have access to it. And he is basically like if you mixed like Jeff Bezos and like Trump with some extra evil, and like that's the dude, Immortan Joe. And so he has like his people, right, that do things for him. And Imperator Furiosa, who is our protagonist, really, is sent to something land to get aqua cola, which is water or gas or something. Gas?
Aqua Cola is the water.
It's water, right?
Yeah.
Or she's supposed to get gas. I can't remember because that's the thing.
She's supposed to get gas. I was literally just watching it before this, which is the only reason bit.
I had it like playing in the morning, rewatching. I've also watched that movie probably like 7 times, at least. Maybe it's closer to 10 now. Anyway, some details don't really stick with me, but there are many things that I love about it. Anyway, and then she kind of out of the blue, just literally turns left and just goes rogue because she is now trying to escape with stolen merchandise from Immortan Joe. And she is really seeking to liberate herself and some of the women that this dude had trapped. And she is trying to get them to this place of like water and greenery and the green place. And do I need to include sort of how it ends? I guess sort of.
There's no
for
rules.
a synopsis. And much shit explodes in the meantime. Like it's really great. It's just like one long chase. It's great. It's great.
Exactly. Well, and there we go. So Nicole,
Yes.
why would we be talking about a children's film about a pig going to a city? Why would we be talking about that and a post-apocalyptic adventure film in our show? What are the connections between these movies, Nicole?
Well, I think there's a lot of connections between these movies, but some of them include that they are both sequels to hit films that feature colons but no numbers in their official titles. And they are also both directed by George Miller, and I believe, personally, that they share many thematic and stylistic elements, as well as I also believe that they constitute George Miller's 2 finest films, personal opinion.
I agree with a lot of that. He also wrote, right? Both. Or like co-wrote.
Because the Babe movies are based on books, but I believe
The
he
script.
wrote or co-wrote the script.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Fury Road, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
But I think he does work with writers regardless on like everything that he does. Like he's not necessarily like exclusively writer director, but he participates in the writing process and all of them. Well, those are some compelling connections between the movies, and I think that perhaps after we take a short break for commerce, We can discuss our own personal reactions to the films, some critical responses, and then really dive in deep on what those connections between the films are, and explore it until we're red in the face. So let's take a quick break for the advertising, and we'll be right back.
And we're back.
And we're back.
What an excellent piece of advertising that was.
Quite possibly the most commercial commerce to come across commercially.
Amazing. So I think now's the time in the show where we usually share some of our personal reactions to films, right? That's what we do?
Yes.
Anybody want to jump in about, I mean, I can talk about my feelings about these films all day.
I feel like you want to start.
I'll start.
Yeah,
sure.
Go for it.
I mean, I feel that these are two fine films. I saw Fury Road initially when it first came out. I saw it a few times in the theater. I've seen it a few times since then. I purchased it on Blu-ray within the past year because I realized, oh, this is a movie I'm going to want to rewatch a lot, and I want to always be able to do that. So I do own it. I think it's like one of my favorite action films ever. It's great. We'll talk about why I like it so much as we get into it. Babe Pig in the City, I had not seen until the past year. I had seen the original Babe. Never saw the sequel, despite the fact that this brought back a memory of when it came out. For a while, I was at home with my family. This was when I was in college. And I remember some friend of Luisa's, my younger sister, had like her parents' car and had somehow stolen a Babe Pig in the City like giant poster and taped it to the like hood of the car. And so we were driving around upstate New York like in this like Babe Pig in the City car because we were assholes and thought it was funny. Like I hadn't even seen the movie. I was just like, it's great, Babe Pig in the City. I meant to see it, but didn't until this year. When my husband and I rewatched original Babe, and I was like, oh, wow, original Babe is amazing. It's better than I thought it was. This is great. And then we're like, oh, let's watch Babe 2. Neither of us ever saw that. And we were like, what the fuck? This movie's amazing. What were we missing out on all these years? This is like such a George Miller movie. I think there's so much continuity in terms of like the themes of liberation and exploitation that run through a lot of Miller's work, as well as just he's one of my favorite directors for any kind of action sequence. All his action sequences, whatever kind of effects they're using, whatever mix of digital and practical effects, which I think are in play in both these films, albeit a couple decades apart, are just cutting edge, looks great. You know what's going on. You know where things are in relation to each other. It's not just like a giant CGI explosion with no sense of place or scale or anything. Like it's very clear in both films. And watching Babe Pig in the City especially, like it has this series of just action set pieces that I'm like, this is so similar to how Fury Road was shot and edited. You know, it looks very different, but it has these certain key components in place. And so I just thought both of them were super fun and engaging to watch. You know, super well shot, super well edited, excellent action sequences, and very compelling themes. And, you know, we'll talk more, but that's my initial reaction.
I agree with all of that. I could not have said it any better, and strongly agree with all of it. I also had not seen Babe in the City. And I had seen Fury Road many times when it came out in theaters. And then one time in the fucking park, and then at friends' houses, and then here on my TV probably another 2-3 times. So when you told me about this, I started by watching Babe 2 first, and then rewatching Fury Road. And I realized I struggled with the first act when it's like the people talking and they're like setting up what's gonna happen. Like way more like delicately maybe than they do in Fury Road, because in Fury Road they kind of like set the world, and then there's one scene where they're like, this is what our blah blah blah, this is what's about to happen, right? But then after that, it's like, I think that's like the only scene where they say things instead of showing them, and then for the rest of the movie, just shit just happens, right? And they barely, like, they talk, but they're not giving you information via dialogue, which is I hate. And Babe, the first part where they keep trying to establish what's going on and what's going to happen and justify it more than establish what's going to happen, but like justify it. And I think that's probably because it's supposed to be a kids movie, maybe. And probably the studio had fucking say in it. But outside of that, it's like, it's very similar to Fury Road, and that like there's a lot of action, there's chases, and I have the brain of a concussed goldfish, and I was never like, oh my God, I don't know what's happening. Where did they go? And I don't know. He's very good at that shit. He's like the anti-Michael Bay of action film. Yeah. I just really like both movies. And I was just like rewatching in the background Thing in the City again. And in the first act, like when the bankers show up to tell them that they're about to lose the farm, he says that like two men with like dead eyes and like he just describes them as like the worst possible creatures on earth. And he's like, who could like be nothing other than people who work at banks. Right. And I was like, yeah, I like that. He kind of, you know, I like that.
Absolutely. I saw Babe Pig in the City a couple of years ago because I was strongly encouraged to by my friend David. I think I ended up watching it at his place, and I was like, I don't know. I like Babe. I've seen trailers for this sequel. It doesn't look that interesting. Babe is fine. I've seen Babe a bunch of times. I don't know if I need to see this. And so he's like, no. You need to watch this movie. And then we watched it. And I knew I loved the movie as soon as they're in the plane and he looks out the window of the plane and you see the skyline of the city. And it's all the cities.
It's all the cities. Yeah.
It's every
really
city.
too.
The city is this sort of, which, you know, thinking about it again now it's interesting because we usually don't do that in films. Usually the city is like some specific city, even if it's a fake city, it's a specific fake city.
Gotham or
and
Metropolis.
Exactly. And they put up landmarks specific to that, but not to anything else. But when we talk about the country or we talk about rural areas, it's a lot more like they're all kind of the same thing. And so it's interesting with Babe that they decided to kind of reverse that. You know, maybe that's in that original children's book as well, which seems like a very children's book thing to do. But like saying like, yeah, the city, which can be all of the cities, and have all of the landmarks of all of the cities, because all cities are just kind of like, it's the city in that kind of larger concept. And I did really love it from there and really enjoy it. And I have feelings about some of the responses to it from the critics. But and then Fury Road, loved it. I actually was one of those movies that I didn't actually ever think was going to happen, because Mad Max 4 was supposed to happen since like the late 90s, and it kept falling apart as a production. I think one of the big things that derailed it was like 9/11, like directly derailed their ability to shoot Mad Max 4 in like 2002. They were supposed to shoot I don't think it was the same movie at all, but they were supposed to do a version then. I mean, I think that what they made is probably better than what they might have made before that. I think I think the film probably really, really in some ways benefited from being forced to delay and being put on hold over and over and over again. And I mean, I'm a fan of most of the Mad Max films. I can't really process the first film. I just kind of lose interest, which is terrible, but I just kind of lose interest. But I've loved the Road Warrior since I was a kid, and probably a good 30% of my personality is based on Thunderdome. So,
but who runs Bartertown, Sean?
Oh God, I believe I'm gonna have to check my notes, but I believe it is Master Blaster. For listeners at home, one thing that I used to do on set when I was crew is sometimes I would walk up to other crew people and I would ask them that question, who runs Bartertown? And they would just look at me like I was a crazy person. And I would feel sad because they didn't know Thunderdome. Or I would mention Thunderdome and they're like, I don't know what you're talking about.
In
and
fact,
I would just go and be sad.
We almost named this very podcast in honor of Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome.
It's truth. Thunderdome is a magical film. I will fight for Thunderdome. But yeah, I also love Fury Road, and I was I'm thrilled it exists. I really like Mad Max as a character, and actually and something maybe we can touch on later. But something I was noticing from some of the articles and the quotes that Nicole pulled, that I really like the kind of character that Max evolved into over the course of Road Warrior, Thunderdome, and it's best realized in Fury Road, where he's really a vehicle for other people to have stories, and like that really comes through as Yessica was pointing out with her synopsis of Fury Road. Like Furiosa's really the protagonist, even though it's a Mad Max movie. But he's really there to just be like, hey, we're going to go, these people are doing a thing, watch them do the thing. And those are interesting characters we don't get enough of anymore. Like it used to be a big part of like stories we got all the time. It was like half of television for a while, as the main character of the show is really just there to show you other people having lives and adventures. But
it's almost what The Mandalorian is, but The Mandalorian doesn't quite do that.
No,
but it's but it's a little bit of that kind of a formula. That's just the closest thing I could think of right now.
Yeah. And even the ones that were on TV back in like the 70s and the 80s that did that, like it was still wasn't quite that. You know, I think of like the Incredible Hulk TV series or Knight Rider or the A-Team, which is really about these other people are having a problem and we'll participate in helping them overcome that problem, or the Equalizer, which I think they've now resurrected as a show with Queen Latifah.
Another show that I think does that, what you were saying about Fury Road, that I think is very similar to what Mad Max is doing in this one, is High Maintenance. I don't know if you've seen that.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
High Maintenance is definitely doing that.
That's a good, yeah.
Like the dude is there. The theme is the same. The world is the same. But it's really about whoever is in that episode. Like the protagonist of that episode is whoever is in that episode. So it kind of, Fury Road is 100% about Furiosa.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's all about that particular story. And I think that's a development of that series. Since we are talking about them in terms of being sequels, it's a development of that series. You know, the first Mad Max movie is just about Max, really. And then the second one, he's helping a group, but it's still very much about his journey helping with that group get their fuel away from the Lord Humongous. And Thunderdome is just him getting caught up in a couple of other people's issues, mostly Auntie Entity and her attempts to run Bartertown. But then that group of kids that he comes across and helping them get away so that they can get to Tomorrowland. Well, he just kind of goes like, well, everybody's gotten what they wanted. I guess I'm just going to leave now. which is kind of how every Mad Max movie ends. Everybody else kind of gets what they wanted, and he's like, well, all right, bye.
Yeah, that's how Fury Road ends.
Yeah. It's exactly how Fury Road
him being
ends.
like, no, I know why.
Yeah.
So we had feelings about Fury Road and Babe Pig in the City. Other audiences as well as critics had feelings as well. Fury Road was a huge hit that was also critically acclaimed on Rotten Tomatoes. It is currently 97% fresh with critics, as it should be, and 86% fresh with audiences. Whereas Babe, which came out in pre-Rotten Tomatoes time, so we always try to caution that with older films, the Rotten Tomatoes scores aren't necessarily as good as kind of a temperature check of what the overall reaction was. But here, in this case, I think it's actually pretty close to what I recall from the time, which is that it was 65% fresh with critics and only 41% fresh with audiences because, so Babe, when it came out, grossed like $70 million, which is down pretty far from the $250 million that the first one grossed, even though the second one cost even more money, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And also, unlike the first Babe, got nominated for tons of awards, won awards, including got a bunch of Oscar nominations, including Best Picture, and it won Best Visual Effects. Babe Pig in the City did not receive that kind of a acclaim. It was, however, nominated for a Stinker Award for the quote-unquote sequel no one was clamoring for, whereas Fury Road grossed over $350 million worldwide, won tons of awards, including 6 Oscars that it absolutely deserved for production design, sound mixing, sound editing. Sound was great in it. Hair and makeup, costume design, and editing. And it was nominated for 4 more Oscars, including Best Picture and Director, which it did not win. So while we feel that these had a lot of things in common, the reception was very different. And I don't know if either of you want to jump into that before we talk about some specific
I think
reviews.
There's an issue with sequels and the kind of expectations that are set, and if you don't kind of repeat enough of the previous film, people get upset by that. Like, honestly, like one of my go-tos for it is, or references for that sort of thing, is honestly like Terminator 2. And I think that Terminator 2 is different enough that it justifies like being like, okay, this is actually, and it's good enough on its own, and Cameron is a better director when he made Terminator 2. But also Terminator 2 gives you enough of the first film with scenes like lifted right out of the first film, repeating it, that it's still got that comfort of, it's kind of like I'm watching the first one again, but like it's new. I think the issue comes up sometimes with sequels of, if the sequel isn't enough like a popular first movie, people get real mad because they're like, that's not what I wanted. And I think Big Pig in the City is just, people are like, this is just a different movie. Why are you giving me something different and new? I want a sequel that is boring and the same thing. And then if you give them a sequel that's boring and the same thing, they complain about that.
Yeah. Also, they came out like fairly close to each other, right?
Yeah, about 2 years, I think.
Yeah.
Whereas...
I want to say Babe was 90 or 3. I think Babe was 95 and Pig in the City was 98.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But pretty like, close.
And Babe, I remember like it was a fucking event because it was a talking pig. It was like, I don't remember what the first movie was about, but I remember Babe being a huge thing when I was a kid. And I think I watched one of the Mad Max's ones, and then I rewatched one, and I'm not even sure which one, when I was in college, I think. And then when Fury Road came out, a friend of mine who is older, who was like a big fan of all of them, I remember like he was just like, the trailer for the new Mad Max just came out, and he just like pulled his iPad and showed me, and I was like, what is he talking about? And he showed me, it was like fucking 6 a.m. on an airport. He showed me the trailer, and I was just like, oh, like, holy shit, right? And like so long had passed, so much time had passed that like even the people who loved Mad Max, they were not like fucking thinking about Mad Max when the sequel was announced, you know? And like and also a lot of the people who loved Mad Max supposedly fucking hated it because it was about a lady and ladies having opinions and things like that. So I don't know. I think it like the sequels usually rely on getting the people who love the first one to watch it and to make the money and to love it and whatever. And in the case of Fury Road, it wasn't just that. It was like really going for a whole new audience.
Yeah, I would imagine a lot of people who loved Fury Road probably never even saw any of the previous Mad Maxes. You don't have to. Like, you really don't have to. You know, you need to know that his world is fire and blood, and he's got serious PTSD and flashbacks of a bunch of children who apparently died and he couldn't save, and that's all you really need to know.
Yeah.
And and that it has and that the world is dead, which they get across very succinctly without having to explain and have a like exposition dump of, you know.
Yeah. I mean, all the Mad Max movies kind of stand on their own. Like, none of them requires any of the other ones. And there's nothing that says even what order they're supposed to take place in. Like, except for that all three of the sequels take place after the first movie. That's the only, like, continuity there is. It's like, the only continuity there is there's a little, like, thing at the beginning of Road Warrior to explain the new world after the first Mad Max movie, because I think that's one of the things that throws me about the first Mad Max movie when I go back to watch it is it's not the post-apocalypse at all. It's just a sort of near future sci-fi cop movie. And it's not.
Oh, that's right. He was a cop.
But he sure isn't anymore now, is he?
He sure.
No.
Which I think there's a strong anti-cop thing actually in a lot of Miller's. I want to talk in just a second about some of these reviews we have excerpted.
And about redemption of like people who are allied with or who are under the power structure, whatever.
Yeah.
Like how they were just like mindless about it, and then they're like, oh shit, let me just be good. Or whatever. Change causes.
Yeah.
Be good.
A lot of Miller films, and definitely these two, are about discovering solidarity amongst people who are all, you know, scrambling for the crumbs of whatever the oppressive system is. Also, but the redemption point you just made, I think, is really good, because I wasn't even tracking that, but definitely in Fury Road, Furiosa says a number of times that's what she's looking for exactly that, because she's been a part of this structure, and she doesn't go into all the details of all the stuff that's keeping her up at night or whatever, but you can imagine. But Babe Pig in the City also, when Farmer Hoggett falls down that well, it's kind of Babe's fault. And
what if?
And throughout the film, and when there's the fire in the children's hospital too, it's like not exactly Babe's fault, but kind of Babe's fault, and Babe feels responsible. So there's a number of catastrophic things that happen in Babe Pig in the City that Babe then is seeking redemption for through his building of solidarity with the other animals living in the city. And there are a number of things that happen where he, in fact, goes and acts in solidarity with animals who had previously attacked him and things like that, because he kind of gets like, we're all in this together. We're all scrambling for the crumbs, and I need to do better. I am haunted by the things, much like Babe and Furiosa are both haunted by the things they have done and trying to find some sort of personal redemption. So that is a really good point. But unfortunately, some critics didn't really pick up on these things. I think to Sean's point about sequels, sometimes if they're not the first movie again, people get mad. I think that's true. But I think there's like even a deeper thing happening with the general negative reaction to Pig in the City and the somewhat more marginal negative reaction on the part of some people to Fury Road. Like Fury Road was overwhelmingly embraced, but there was this like small section of like MRA Mad Max fans who are like, fuck this woman, fuck this movie, fuck this woman. Why isn't Max the protagonist? Why is she like using him as a gun stand? Like, this isn't what I wanted to see. And similarly, Sean and I already did a whole fucking episode about the first Babe and Texas Chainsaw Massacre and all the similarities between them, because the first Babe movie, the plot is Babe gonna get eaten by the man he loves? Mm-hmm. That's what that movie's about.
Oh.
And he ends up not, because he ends up showing that he has use as a sheep pig.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not just this quirky thing of like, oh, I want to be a sheep pig because I'm a unique individual, which is how a lot of people talk about the film. He wants to be a sheep pig so he won't get eaten the way that duck was.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's very... And so when people like our old friend Janet Maslin, who we talked about her review of Surviving the Game recently, another film she did not like that I like, she said of Babe Pig in the City in the New York Times back in 98 that his new friends include chimps and a Pitbull, signaling the obviously less lighthearted quality of the sequel. I don't know why chimps and a Pitbull equal like Grimdark, but apparently in Janet Maslin's mind they do. This film's occasional taste for dark moments and unappetizing sights makes its G rating somewhat questionable for very young children. The plot contrivances to send Farmer Hoggett down a well in a nasty accident. Then Babe and Esme Hoggart head for the city, hoping to save the farm, and much fun is made of Miss Subansky's, I might be mispronouncing the actress's name, sturdy Esme, who becomes the subject of endless fat jokes, as well as a police strip search at the airport. It seems that a drug-sniffing dog has detected contraband somewhere, and anyone eager to explain that to Tots should have no problem with the rest of the story. By the time Esme has wound up in the clown's purple suit and swinging from a chandelier across a ballroom, this Babe has all but lost its bearings. Like, the first thing I just want to call attention to is the obviously less lighthearted quality of the sequel. Both films have, like, real themes in them. I just fundamentally reject this idea that the first Babe was lighthearted and the second one was not.
I think that there's a little bit of like, almost like, and this is probably not the right way to phrase it, but like geographic prejudice there, because Babe happens in a rural area. It happens in a farm. So every dark thing that happens in a farm is that's just what happens at a farm. Pigs get eaten at a farm, ducks get eaten at a farm, slaughtering happens at a farm, wolves happen at a farm. That's just the farm. That's fine. Like, that's just normal. But once you move it to a city environment, well, this is dark. This stuff doesn't happen in cities. Or when it happens in cities, it's urban in quotes. And that's dangerous.
It's like the city is inherently corrupted and dangerous, whereas the farm is inherently wholesome and
pure.
Great. Yeah. And whatever
kinda
violence happens on the farm to human or animals is justified, or we can like kind of ignore it. Like the weird thing that I think happened with the first Babe, where I think lots of critics and other people who saw it just suppressed whole elements of the plot and like don't remember them. And I'm like, oh yeah, because I've heard so many people be like, oh yeah, Babe, the wonderful movie about how we all are unique individuals and a pig can be a sheepdog too. That's what it's about. It's about being yourself. And I'm like, that's a theme.
I mean, it's very much about not being yourself, though.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very much about like, you're a pig, so if you pretend to be a sheepdog, you can live.
They break it down in the first Babe. They like have this whole discussion. They're like, this is how it is on the farm. See which animals like don't stick around that long and see which ones do. Mm-hmm. The ones who don't get eaten are the ones who show that they have other worth, that they can perform some sort of labor. So figure out what that's, and it's a difficult film because on the one level, the relationship between Hoggett and Babe is really sweet. But on the other level, it's so fucked up because the whole thing is like this pig trying to curry favor with a person who both has legitimate affection for the pig, but also is really planning on eating that pig, you know, which is a thorny thing to maybe grapple with, but like that's meat. That's like, I don't like, we're all adults here, I think.
Nah,
No.
questionable.
Questionable.
But also questionable. Also,
Yes, please.
What I just want to know, what is the fucking dark shit that happens in the city? What is the dark thing of Pig in the City? Because it's honestly a stupid ass movie. No disrespect, but maybe some. Like, it's fucking silly. Like and I did have an issue with all the fucking fat jokes with Esme. Hug it. Like, a lot of it was like when she ends up in the clown costume. And then that whole scene at the end where she's like bouncing in the suspenders. What's dark about that?
I didn't actually see that as a fat joke. And if someone wants to like disagree, I could be reading the film through
when her
rose-colored
dress
glasses.
rips is kind of, I thought
That was the one point. That was like the only point, though, that to me I was like, that's kind of a fat joke, like her dress rip. But the rest of it, I didn't feel like she was an object of ridicule. I thought,
I felt like a couple of times she was, and like she was made out to be like simple, and maybe because she was from the farm and she was now in the city or something. But also, like, there's this man that she encounters at the airport who tells her about the hotel, and his face looks like a pig.
That was the weirdest thing to me in the movie, and then
that
the
was
judge
fucking
later.
Weird.
That was weird.
Yeah,
I didn't read it as a fat joke. I read it as
no. That I don't read as a fat joke either.
Yeah.
But like, for example, they're making fun of the sort of. It just felt like they were also making fun of the skinny, thin lady that owns the hotel. Maybe I don't know.
I feel like there were a
It's
lot of sight gags in it. I felt like there was a lot of visual humor and a lot of very physical slapstick humor. And I thought that the Esme has a lot of physical like pratfalls and like comic moments, but I didn't see, at least most of the time, I didn't see her size as really being like a point of ridicule.
Yeah.
I thought she was a gifted physical comedian.
The dress and the fact that she could only wear the clown costume of that dude. That I don't know. That bothered me.
I can see that. I had a different read on it because I thought that was about building the thing about how she ends up bonding with the chimps or the orangutan because she was in the clothes.
They call her herself.
They call her herself. Like they used to call Mickey Rooney himself. And again, that doesn't mean it's not also problematic and doing other things at the same time. But I just thought it was weird. Part of this is like when I first saw Babe, I was like, fuck this movie. And the reason I was like, fuck this movie is because I'm like, this movie's fat phobic. Everyone says it's so great, but it's fat phobic and it's sexist and meh. And then when I rewatched it this year, I was like, I do see what I was responding to, but it's actually a lot milder than what I had remembered. And I was like, oh, I really like this movie now. But I think the first Babe is more fat phobic about Mrs. Hoggett than the sequel. So it was just weird to me that critics that thought the first one was like this unimpeachable masterpiece are suddenly like, and this sequel's fat phobic. I'm like, wait, what?
I mean, I can see why they would go with that because she has a much more substantial role in this one. You know, the farmer isn't the one isn't the human with the relationship to, So, like, I can see how that they would make that more of a focus because she was kind of incidental to the first. I mean, not incidental, but she's
kind of the
secondary
heavy in the first, actually, because she's the one who stays wanting to eat Babe after Farmer Hoggett is like bonding with him. So I was actually happy in the sequel that she got to take center stage and develop her relationship with Babe.
Yeah,
and I liked that. Sorry, go ahead.
No. You were talking. Sorry.
I was just saying I love that scene at the end. Where like the purple clown outfit where I was a thing where I was like, I could see how it depends what you think is interesting about that, you know, and what you think is funny about that. And I'm like, I could see this being fat phobic, but it's also just like an absurd visual that isn't really about size. It's about like, I'm in this flamboyant purple suit. And to me, it was mostly about kind of like the physics of that action sequence, because it reminded me of Fury Road, specifically in how there's like so much unusual.
The Lancers.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, oh, I said to Sean, I was like, oh, this is reminding me of the guys up on the poles on Fury Road, just having these swinging kind of curvaceous motions. Yeah. Curvaceous? Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah, parabolic.
Yeah, and I'm like, and it's fun. There's the tower of champagne glasses, and you think they're gonna crash, and instead everything else gets broken. Yeah, except
that was very good.
It's like good, satisfying sight gags and filmmayking.
But it also kind of kept going forever. I kind of did love that scene.
Okay,
but it's also
I did like a lot of things. Sorry.
Anytime you do physical comedy with somebody who's overweight, it is playing on the fact that they are overweight. Like, it is kind of, if it is not,
people will see it that way, but like,
I mean, it is that way. Like, because the physical comedy with somebody who is overweight is predicated in a lot of ways on their size. And I'm not saying that they're doing it in a way to be like, ah, man, fuck fat people. But like, it does like play on that plenty. And which isn't to say that it shouldn't be there or that it shouldn't be done, but that there's still, I think, a legit criticism to why are we choosing to do this with this character? And I don't think that they shouldn't have done it. Like, I'm not arguing that they shouldn't have done it. I'm not arguing that they did anything wrong, but I do think that there is a point there, and that it's one of those times where the choice in and of itself is partly problematic, not even necessarily the execution of it, because there's all kinds of history there, right?
Yeah,
there is all kinds of like, well, fat people are not good physically, like, so it's going to be funny one way or the other. Whether they do something, whether they can do something that we don't expect them to be able to do because they're fat, or whether it's that they can't. Now, usually, of course, it's that they can't. But even just as another sort of related example, another version of that is similar, but the opposite side of it is there's that Melissa McCarthy movie Spy. And a lot of the premise of that movie, the joke is that she is significantly more physically capable as a spy than anybody expects her to be. Like, she's, because of her size and her physicality, her character before the start of the movie had been relegated to working, behind the scenes as like the person on the phone for the quote unquote real spies. But then she has this opportunity to go out and do the quote unquote real spy stuff as part of the arc of the movie. And you expect that, oh, she's not actually going to be good at this, but she's actually amazing, and even better than her foil in that movie, who's played by Jason Statham. And so it's the same kind of joke, and it's problematic in being that same kind of joke, but not necessarily. It's like that there's always like levels to that. It's like, we're making this joke, and that's kind of problematic on its own. It's kind of a problem on its own. But is it, I guess then, yes, there's a problem, but is it really that bad on the level, on the scale of them, on the spectrum of terrible things we could be doing right now? This is not as bad as, say, Shallow Hal, which would be very far on the other side of the spectrum, which I've never seen. But
I would argue it's not even as bad as the first Babe. Like, it's just that, like you said, she's in it more. But I also feel like some of it is people reading things onto it that aren't even necessarily there because of their own expectations they're bringing. That said, I think that speaks to your point, Sean, that like there's a history there. People are coming to this like through the lenses that we're used to viewing things from, and that's there regardless of what someone's intent was. But
both sides of it are fair. I think what you're saying is fair, is that it's really not that bad in here in this context.
I'm even willing to say it is that bad. I just am saying that it's not worse than the first Babe. That's the only hill I'm going to die on about it.
Sure.
I'm happy to hear if people are like, this is really fucked up and harmful. Like, I like I said, I got my rose-colored glasses with this movie. I really like it. I'm interpreting things through my set of stuff, but there's a lot more there.
And And I think it's one of those problems that we run into when people try to universalize like how everybody reacts to a particular film, or talk about like this film or this movie is this way. With Babe, like, is there fat phobic jokes going on in here? Absolutely. Is that the movie? No.
But Sean,
will everybody read it the same way?
Perfect movies with no problems. You know, those two that we talked about on the first episode or whenever, the fourth episode with Liam, I said there were two films that were unproblematic, but I wouldn't say what they were.
Exactly. Two unproblematic films in the whole world.
And that is all I watch, because now I can't watch Babe Pig in the City anymore because it's got problems.
I want to say that, you know, it's not that it fixes whether or not there's like fat phobic jokes. But one thing that I really loved from the beginning about Fury Road was that it's not only not ableist, but the fucking main character, who is just mind-blowing and amazing, is missing most of her left arm.
Yeah, she's an amputee with a prosthetic. Yeah.
And she has a prosthetic, and she is one of the best in her field. And it's like a very physical job that she has. And it is never like, it's not that they ignore it, like, because it's not like, oh, it doesn't matter that she doesn't have part of her left arm and has a prosthetic. Like, it does matter, and it affects the story many times in different ways. But it is not like a flaw. It's not a bad thing. It's not something that hinders her anything, right? It's just a thing. Like, if she had like how she has maybe no hair, whatever. I don't know. That's a bad example.
Yeah, it's a part of her, but it's not like, here's your thing. This is your challenge to overcome.
It doesn't define her, but it is a characteristic, right? And there is that little, and it doesn't make her like helpless or anything like that. And there's that little dog in Pig in the City who is like in the little doggy wheelchair, who is also incredibly capable, and fucking like, it's never, if I remember correctly, like, it's never made into a joke. He just happens to be in a doggy wheelchair, and at one point fucking chases a fucking, what is it, like a trailer truck thing? I don't know.
Yeah.
And, you know, he kind of like gets messed up, and then they help him get back on, but then he just keeps going. Like, it's, I really like those two things.
They rejected, I think that's, what's his name? Flea something. It's something with flea in it. And he, as I recall, the scene you're talking about where he like bites on to something hanging out of the side of the truck that's taking all the animals that animal control have captured from the hotel they had been illegally all staying at to take them to the pound. They reject him. I think they're like, what are we supposed to do with this one? Like, he's damaged goods, and they like throw him. Yeah. And then what happens right afterwards, like, directly undermines that
what
sentiment.
They said. And it's also like the bad people, like the horrible people doing the horrible shit, like unredeemable motherfuckers are the ones who say that.
Yes, exactly. And
he immediately proves they're like, they got him fucked up. Like, like, they're wrong.
Those are the bad guys in these movies, right? It's like the bankers with the soulless eyes. You know, it's animal control who are being ableist and generally like, you know, cruel and objectifying animals. And then like cops, right? Because like we mentioned in the Janet Maslin review, I quoted, they mention that, and this was a moment where I was like, whoa, this is a G-rated movie. But I was saying this is a G-rated movie throughout all of the first Babe 2. I don't think Babe 2 is any more adult than the first one. But I was like, oh, this is deep when Babe gets off the plane at the airport and there's like drug control dog who's like, hey, word, I know how to get food. All I have to do is bark. All I have to do is basically snitch on you. It doesn't matter if I'm making it up. And the dog doesn't understand what he's doing, but the drug-sniffing dog just starts barking, which is what leads to Babe being detained. And then Mrs. Hoggett getting like strip searched, which they don't show or anything. But some critics seemed really like, how could they do that? Why would you explain that to a kid? And I'm like, I don't know. So my niece is 4 and my niece is ACAB. So like, why? You're never too young. You're never too young to learn.
Also, another very cool thing later when she's at this like mall Disneyland thing, like Esme is going around screaming, pig, pig, looking for Babe. And the fucking pigs turn. Like she screams pig and the cops are like, what's up? You like I really love that. I really love that because they you know, and then she gets in trouble because she's looking for her pig and the fucking pigs are like, oh, you want trouble?
Yeah, that's like what fucks stuff up for her in that movie is just cops over and over again. And she gets out of like one fucked up situation the cops put her in unfairly and stumbles into another one. And it's like, that's the like danger of the city is a combination of like out of control cops and people fighting for resources, right? And like, I don't think Babe Pig in the Cities thinks the city is bad. However, I do think Babe Pig in the City recognizes that cities are set up for humans and they're fucked up places for animals if they don't have like a place. Like animals who are stray in the city have like limited options and there's limited food. And that's why, you know, the end of the movie is they all end up going to go live on Hoggett's farm. But I don't think that's about like, oh, the city is bad and violent. It's like, well, yeah, it's not great to be like a herd of stray dogs.
Yeah.
And so many of the, much like the cop dog who has to like snitch on other people and animals to survive and get fed, there are the other animals that get liberated by Babe and his friends in Babe Pig in the City. There are the guard dogs that are, and one of them that are guarding someplace where there's food. I don't remember what it was. And, you know, some of Babe's cohorts are like, yeah, why don't you go herd those sheep? Sure. Yeah. We'll see you if we see you. Good luck with that. And so they can steal some jelly beans and whatnot to eat.
Yeah.
But and then those guard dogs like break out and chase Babe through that very excellent action sequence.
Incredible.
It's amazing. And it ultimately ends with one of the dogs almost drowning and then Babe goes back and saves him. It's a beautiful message, honestly.
I really, you know what? Also, I see a lot of parallels between that Pitbull or whatever animal it is, like that dog, the one that almost drowns, and Nux, the war boy.
Yes.
It's like a guard dog that's like chasing them and it's about to get fucked up. And then the good ones, like the hero tribe, even though it's like one of the breeder girls, I shouldn't call them breeders. But the girl with the red hair, she kind of helps him too. And Max helps him too, sort of. Anyway, and they're both chained at around the time they're about to die, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, and then they redeem themselves and become allies. And they're thankful to the people who helped them out. And they kind of like realign their, you know, beliefs. I also really like, sorry, if, I guess doesn't matter if there are spoilers, but I really like that Nux. I really like that Nux dies in the movie. And I just really like that because I would have been tight if he had come back and like there had like if it had been implied that he was gonna have a happy life with red hair. I like that he likes and he's just like, witness me. And she's like, bye. Like, you don't get that much more. Like, you get to, like, die the way you hope to die, but just for a better cause now. And that's it. But
that's his redemption. Yeah. It's not like, you get to go have a happy life
like,
with
like, a hot lady. Like, no, you don't get that. Fuck off. But then I really like, the Pitbull at times, or whatever that dog is. it uses, like, he kind of uses his, like, I don't know, power, or like his like intimidation powers, whatever, to put them behind Babe. Like, I think there's like at least one time maybe where he's like, shut the fuck up and listen to the pig. We're going to do what the pig says. All right. And as, you know, someone who sometimes people don't listen to, that really, like, that moment I was like, because I've been on set sometimes where like a large white man is like, shut up and listen to her. And I'm like, thank you. And then, like, even if I'm screaming, like, listen to me, people won't listen to me. But then sometimes you do need that type of, like, quiet, actual ally who will, like, redirect support to you. I don't know.
Absolutely.
Kind of like, and, like, Knox does that, too. I don't know. I like that.
That's a great point. That's absolutely, yeah, that's absolutely true. I feel like George Miller's really interested in exploitative systems, and then, like, what are the different roles that different people are playing in it, and how can people, like, shift sides? Like, how can redemption be possible without, but like a real redemption, an earned redemption, not like, oh, I want to be with you guys now. It's like, you still need to pay some kind of price for the evil you did. And he takes that really seriously. He's like, that's such a theme in so many of his films, paired with these politics that overall I think are, like, pretty good and relevant to the real world. And what's happening there?
When you were talking about the sort of ACAB vibes to it, and even just the way that they handle, like, the search and her getting pulled in by the airport security and the cops there, reminded me of a section, something I thought of during going through some of the quotes we pulled from this Christopher Kelly article from Film Quarterly. Mad Max Fury Road isn't George Miller's most nutso movie. Babe Pig in the City is. The quote, the full section that we pulled was, I don't want to overstate the astonishing visual ambition of the film. Too many viewers have been scared away by the widespread mischaracterization that Babe 2 is some kind of esoteric art film. Besides, Miller's real achievements lie elsewhere, with the richly textured characters and generously told story, and in the film's daring, difficult, unashamedly mature thematic landscape. Babe 2, it turns out, is the rare sequel that's about the complications of a post-happily ever after existence. And also, you're talking about Nux doesn't get to live happily ever after. When I was reading that piece, it made me think about something that I know, Nicole, you and I have talked about a few times, which is, this film came out in 1998, and 1998, 99, 2000, early 2001, we got a lot of, like, films that were, hey, let's embrace sort of one, and I'm going to throw Blade in there too. Which was 1998. Let's embrace being a little bit weird, being magical realism, and just sort of any story. You know, in this story, and Zoolander, Josie and the Pussycats, and also criticism of power structures was a thread throughout a lot of things. And Josie and the Pussycats has criticism of corporate power structures. Blade is also an ACAB movie. Zoolander is also anti-corporate power structures in certain ways. I think
it is.
Speed Racer. Or that was later.
Speed Racer was later, but so also is to the point, is that, and that actually to the point of, like, where Fury Road fits into this is, we have, and this is something that, again, you and I have talked about a lot, Nicole, is like, we have the pre 9/11 movie landscape and what you were allowed to do in mainstream movies. You were allowed to be more magical. You were allowed to be critical of power structures. Like, those were things that you could just have subtly in there. Like, she could walk through the thing and then say pig, and the joke, and the pigs would turn, and that was the joke, and that was fine. And then we have that point, and then we have this sort of void that happens in, like, in the 2000s, starting around, like, late 2002, when production kind of caught up to reality. Everything all the mainstream stuff starts to really hard shift towards
National
like, quote
treasure.
unquote, national treasure, realism in big quotes.
Yeah, because that was a very realistic film, National Treasure.
Yeah, but you know what I mean? Like it's not, but it is in that sort of like, it is in that sort of bullshit way where it's not like there was something actually magical that he was going after, which would actually be kind of amazing. Like there's something actually magical in sort of the history there, but that it had to be like a real thing. But it's also like,
the super, sorry, not to cut you off,
go for
but
it.
like I'm thinking about the Nolan Batman movies,
yes,
right?
That
like
was where I was going
super,
next. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Superhero movies had to all suddenly be like, but how tortured would everybody really be? Which that's fine. Sure. Go into the psychological depths. I have no problem with that. But like we can have color in comic book movies. They're comic book movies.
Yeah.
They don't have to all be like grayscale and grim and sad and everyone's bummed out all the time. Like,
yeah, there can be magic in it. And actually, when you were mentioning Speed Racer, I think Speed Racer is a really great example of this problem because Speed Racer comes out in 2008. Speed Racer came out too early. The shift hadn't happened yet because Speed Racer flopped.
Yeah.
I mean, it made a bunch of money,
That was
but
the
it flopped
Wachowski
in those
sisters,
terms.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it's delightful. It's an amazing movie. It is maybe my favorite movie from them.
Really?
Yeah. It's a wild movie.
I watched it. I just can't remember anything.
It's kind of crazy. But it's also it also sort of expands it expands techniques from a technical standpoint, like the way it's edited the way a lot of animated stuff was done anyway. It has characters wiping the screen as they're explaining something, and it changes the scene in ways that you could do then because you had green screen in ways that they couldn't really execute well before. But it uses it stylistically. It does interesting things with transitioning between scenes by fading out only part of the frame and then fading it in, which I haven't seen done many other places. The only other time I remember seeing that outside of animation is Life of Pi. They did it, and Life of Pi gets celebrated for lots of reasons, and it's a good movie. But like, there's Speed Racer saying like, let's do everything, but people weren't like, but in the large sort of mainstream movie making and movie watching, like we were still stuck in this level of like, oh no, we can't do that because we got to be real. We got to have realism. And I think we had a really special moment in the late 90s and early 2000s, and in 2001, where there was a certain level of, hey, here's what we can do with film, and here's how we can really tell stories in a way that transcends, let's just capture this version of life, this gritty, real version of life, in a way that's like, let's actually like explore issues in a way that makes fun of things, but is also really criticizing them. Let's criticize police in a way that it's fun in the movie, but like, for example, Blade, like the cops are like, work for the vampires, unambiguously just work for the vampires. And the vampires are the bad guys and the cops are the bad guys in the movie. And it's treated as like, you're dumb if you don't think that the cops are the bad guys.
Vampires versus the Bronx.
I haven't seen it yet. It's so ridiculous that I haven't seen that yet.
I hate both of you. I watched it like 5 times already.
You texted me. I remember you watching it. You're like, have you seen Vampire versus the Bronx? And I'm like, I'm going to watch it. And then it hasn't happened yet. But
it's almost a documentary. And
I have no doubt.
The first time I watched it, I cried so many times, which is not, nobody should cry in that movie, but just watch it.
It's on my list of 2020 movies I still need to watch and haven't yet. It's
also, when you do, I want you to give me 3 possible times where you think I may have cried. Because you won't find them. Anyway.
I
cried a lot during that movie.
I like it when movies make me cry. I like to have some sort of emotional release and get to feel things.
I really love that movie so much.
What I wanted
movies
to
very
say,
much go up in my estimation if they can do that
cops
to me.
and vampires. Watch that movie.
to Sean's point about the late 90s into the early 2000s before they were like, oh, this all needs to stop right now. The year 1999, which I forget the name of the author. I know there's a book that came out about a year ago just about the year 1999 in film and how it was this like breakthrough year where for better or worse, some of these films are better than others, but that we got all these films that were like critical and commercial successes and winning awards. Some actually were not commercial successes at the time, but have gone on to be, that were dealing with a lot of themes about like economic exploitation and capitalism not even working that well for a lot of the people it is working well for. Like, you know, like Office Space and Fight Club, which are very similar films, however much you may or may not like them. American Beauty, which is a film I hate, but is a film that like brings up and weird shit like Being John Malkovich. Like there were so many films that came out that year and did well that were approaching stuff that had previously not been in mainstream films for a while. Like in the 70s maybe, yeah, but like from the 80s and through most of the 90s, shit got really sanitized and it was starting to get wild again. And yeah, then 9/11 happened and we had a whole fucking cultural reset where we went back to the fucking 1950s, basically.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny that it's funny that you mentioned this thing about 1999. I'd have to I want to check that out, because one of the things I was doing earlier today when I was like I'm just gonna fuck around a little bit is I make my lists on Letterboxd of like my lists of like favorite to least favorite, and this morning I did 1999.
Oh, I'll check that out.
I have 84 movies on there that I've seen from 1999.
Love a Letterboxd.
Guess what my
list.
favorite movie from 1999 is?
I have zero idea. I don't even know.
Robot Jocks 2? I don't know.
No, Robot Jocks. There's no official Robot Jocks 2. There are 2 unofficial sequels. I know that. No, Bringing Out the Dead.
Oh, yeah.
My favorite Scorsese movie.
What? What is
Bringing
it called?
Out the Dead?
It's
is that a Scorsese movie?
Yeah, it's Nicolas Cage as an EMT. I saw it when it came out, but I have not seen it since then.
Nicolas
He's like
Cage is an
drugged out
EMT
who's just like one crazy night in New York, high off his ass, like trying to save lives.
It's not exactly that, but it's kind of that.
I'm sorry.
It's but like it's not one crazy night in New York, but it is. It's just sort of the wear on this group of people who they're all EMTs and this sort
EMTs?
of it's an interesting story.
I know.
Oh, ambulance. Ambulance. It's got Ving Rhames. It's got it's got a couple of good people in it.
Yeah.
It's an interesting movie. I like it. I kind of like it because it's very far away from some of the other things Scorsese does, and I like plenty of Scorsese stuff, but it like shows a lot of his like filmmaking skills where I don't have to watch another fucking mob movie. I just don't.
But Sean, I know this really good mob movie, but it's like a different take on the typical hitman narrative. It's called Hitman Narrative with a twist. That's in parentheses. So I think you should watch that one, because here's the thing, like he's a hitman, but he has vulnerabilities too.
You don't say.
He tries to keep them
loves
hidden.
his daughter.
He discovers he has a daughter. And so that's the twist. Because think about it. What if you were a hitman trying to kill people, but you were also trying to be a parent? Those things are kind of contradictory. It's kind of a thinker.
I think it's kind of amazing for me that I appreciated and I actually loved Possessor as much as I did, considering it is a Hitman movie.
I was going to tell you. I was like, this is a Hitman movie you're going to like.
That's the only reason I didn't watch it at first. It's a movie from last year from...
David Cronenberg's son.
It's got, what's her name? Andrea Riseborough is in it.
Then maybe I will watch that.
Yeah.
Is it good?
It's really good. It's really weird, trippy. It's kind of spooky. It's sort of a body horror thing, but it's also a Hitman movie. You might get freaked out by it.
Yeah, it's like it's scary. It's disturbing.
That's what I'm saying. You don't.
I did watch Midsommar the other day.
That's
finally.
But that's a comedy.
We'll have you back.
Fuck you.
No,
it's a comedy.
I kind of think it's a comedy too. Like,
it's hilarious.
We could have you back on and we can talk about it because we're gonna agree.
What? He's in a bear suit and then he burns to death. It's hilarious.
Yeah.
That was great. That maybe it has a happy ending.
Yeah.
I had a big smile on my face.
It's a beautiful ending. Also, if you watch the director's cut, it much more clearly comes through. The comedy does. Like they made him cut it down for the original
Nicole,
for the original theatrical run.
Nicole mentioned that, and also my friend Aiko, who had been insisting on me watching that movie since she saw it the first time. She was like, "You're gonna love it. You're gonna love it. You have to watch it." And I was like, "But is there gonna be blood?" And then it was way worse than that, but it was worth it. God, when they fucking jump from that fucking rock, man.
Oh yeah, no, that's
what the fuck. Also, I still don't know what the fuck the sister thing was with the.
I mean, she killed herself. She
yeah, and then all of them with like gas from the
from
oven?
gas.
Is that it?
Yeah, I think it was from the oven. Like she put the mask on to make sure she killed herself, but it flooded the house with enough carbon monoxide.
Okay.
That was the hardest part for me of the whole movie. When I first saw it, that opening, and with the score that has those like low sounds that are like making you feel kind of sick, I was like, I don't know if I can watch this. This is like too intense and too upsetting. But then after the like family suicide and her Florence Pugh's like, you know, what's happening? I need to like, once that part was over, which I found really hard to watch, the rest of it was smooth sailing for me. Like, I mean, it had moments that were hard to watch, but I was just like delighted. Yeah. I'm like, this is great. I want to watch all these fucking motherfuckers die. Great. Oh, and then it happened so much more beautifully than I possibly could have imagined. So what else were we supposed to talk about
instead of fucking Blade and Midsummer?
Yeah, now that we've 1999.
I mean, I think we've really covered pretty much everything that we wanted to cover. I
mean, I could talk about these movies all day, but
yeah, but I think we've covered what we wanted to cover as far as the anti-authoritarianism, as far as their roles as sequels to hit films. And I think one of the points that I think that you were making earlier, Yessica, is really good, is that there is a certain amount of distance between, like, it matters that there was so much distance between these sequels. Is that between, you know, there's only 3 years, as you said, between Babe and Babe Pig in the City. It's almost not enough time to miss it for having a sequel that's so different. And then Fury Road, like, yeah, there's backlash from MRAs and stuff like that, but really what it is also just people who didn't actually process the other movies, because I was going back and thinking about it after looking at that, and one of the quotes from Recasting Nature as a Feminist Space by Michelle Yates, you pulled some quotes from that one, and she points out, and I talked about this a little bit, about how Max is kind of a facilitator of other people's adventures, and she talks a little bit about it's as an explorer cowboy figure, his character still represents hegemonic white masculinity. And at the end of the film, there's no room in this reclaimed space for hegemonic masculinity. On the one hand, unlike traditional Hollywood Edenic recovery narratives, Fury Road adamantly critiques hegemonic white masculinity and its articulation with capitalism. On the other hand, the fact that there is no room for Max in the Citadel at the film's end represents a tension around the role of masculinity in a non-patriarchal world. And that got me thinking about the other two, the Road Warrior and Thunderdome, that, as I was saying before, there's kind of an evolution where Fury Road has this the most, but even in Road Warrior, there's a prominent female warrior figure who is kind of paired with Max throughout most of the film. She's not really the leader, or she's not the leader, but she's kind of like secondary to the leader of the group he's helping. And then when we get to Thunderdome, we have two female figures who are leaders. We have Auntie Entity, who he helps take over Bartertown. Not really something he wants to do, but he does it anyway. And there's also the group of children is led by a girl. And the group of children that he helps escape out, and they get back to the bombed out leftovers of Sydney. Like, he facilitates as a character, while he was a little bit more prominent in the other films as far as his arc. his character is there in a lot of ways, I think, arguably to facilitate sort of, I made a note here. He kind of,
I see your note.
yeah.
He said he's a facilitator for the reclaiming / resurrection of civilization from the wasteland.
Yeah. And
Well said.
That was the part of it. I was saying,
Wordsmithery.
yeah, that's what I was looking too far down in my note. I didn't realize I put it up there first, but he's kind of there for that. And in all of these narratives, like, there's a certain level of, it's less of a degree in the Road Warrior, but there's a certain level of like women taking over that he's there and helping to facilitate. And I think that the MRAs and the incels and whatever else who are reacting against Fury Road and like, it's not even his movie. It's like, that's kind of how his movie works though.
Also, like those motherfuckers, they didn't care about Mad Max. They were also pissing their pants about Ghostbusters and like other fucking. It wasn't about Mad Max. It was about their agenda. So fuck them.
Yeah. It's not
absolutely.
about loving Mad Max. It's about hating women.
Yeah.
Because they don't even understand the things that they're complaining about.
And it's the same with all these motherfuckers, like the fucking Nazis who like Star Wars and feel like got taken away from them. What movie were they watching? When all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. When you're a fucking MRA motherfucker,
the fucking Punisher, and which is literally a movie or like a whole story, right? Like the comic about this dude who turns into a fucking vigilante because the cops suck ass. And now the cops love that shit? Are you dumb?
I mean,
know.
Yes.
I will say, in fairness, it's pretty easy to go with for those people to embrace the Punisher because like the way the Punisher's been written by a lot of like hard right people. Like in the books, they actually don't use him that much, and they try to find other ways to use him because they're like, this is fucked. This is what we wrote here, what we created here in the late 80s, early 90s. This is all fucked up how we approach that.
I remember the first time I saw someone with an IDF Punisher patch on like their jacket, and I was just like, what? And then I learned it's a whole thing. You can get so much Punisher IDF gear, even though it's like, but what, aren't you kind of telling on yourself by... No.
He's such a it absolutely is like the sort of thing where it's like, well, no, you're right. This character exists because the cops are, suck in there. But then even the people who continue to tell stories with that character, just the way they interpreted the cops suck is that sort of Dirty Harry interpretation of like, they suck because they don't go far enough. Is that whole thing. And like, he's a character who I'm like, there are times that I've read his stuff and I'm like, this is good. There is some interesting stuff happening here and this is entertaining. And other times where I'm like, no, that's not it. No, that's not it at all, guys. It just, it's one of those ones where, I kind of want the character to just go away.
Disappear.
Yeah. Or be recontextualized. So sorry, go ahead.
I want the opposite to happen, and I just in a bubble I want to mention because they are maybe my favorite, like the one character that I like fully identify, not fully, but like the most, like identify with in many ways in Fury Road is from the, what is it, Volvolini, the ladies that Furiosa comes from. They're just, I just want to see them. They're so great. Like they're so fucking great. And the one that is like, I never met a man I didn't kill. And she has her seeds and she's like trying to grow plants whenever she can. And it's just,
I want to see that spin-off
I want to
show.
See more of. Yeah.
Give us a TV show
get rid
about
of the Punisher and we get them.
Seriously. Yeah. That is an excellent idea.
More of these
they're
things.
So great. They're so great. They're so great.
It's such a rich, so much
less
of what's...
of them died.
I know, but they, you know what though? That's how it goes on Fury Road.
But
And
they fulfilled many purposes. They were great.
it was a righteous cause. And this, there was a quote I wanted to read from that's funny because it's talking about Babe Pig in the City, but I feel like it could be talking about Fury Road just as much. From this article, Toys in the Attic from Film Quarterly by Christopher Kelly. He's talking about Babe Pig in the City, but he says, in the end, Miller could never be accused of pessimism. He shows us the exacting cost of triumph, but also shows us why it's worth every penny. Like, and he's talking about Babe Pig in the City, where nobody except Mickey Rooney actually dies. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, like it's about, it's about the cost of winning, but it's about how it's still worth it to win. And throughout Fury Road, there's various points where like the wives will be kind of talking amongst themselves about like, well, Jesus, maybe we should just go back. Like, relatively speaking, yeah, we were sex slaves who were being raped repeatedly, but like we had enough to eat. We were taken care of.
And it was easier
than it is,
quote unquote.
Yeah, in some ways, in fact, maybe it's easier like that. And of course, the view of Fury Road is no, it's worth it to do the harder thing for freedom. And it's just so interesting that even in this quirky, like talking animal movie, it ends in the same way. And one thing, I know we're going to have to wrap up soon because I need to go to therapy soon, but both films are structured around water access in a formal way. It's obviously like figuratively more important in Fury Road, and not just figuratively, but like to the plot.
Yeah.
It's more concretely important in Fury Road, but also Babe Pig in the City, like the catalyst that like sets stuff off involves like water access. And then the very end of Babe Pig in the City, once they're back on Hoggett's farm, is that Hoggett finally gets his well worked out.
It's restored. Yeah.
And the farm has, and he's upgraded it. It's not like the same old well. He's like modernized it a bit. And now like, it's great. We've got running water and I'm not going to fall in and maybe kill myself again. And I just thought that there's something really nice about the structural role just water access plays, because especially Fury Road makes it very clear that this is something on George Miller's mind as an increasing real problem of just access to clean water.
A fucking thing in Wall Street's mind, because now they're fucking doing that thing with fucking water futures. It's like very much a thing. It's another one of those things where I'm like, fuck, this shit that for like 2 decades, like me and my friends will be like, you just wait and we're going to have the water wars. And it's water in Harlem right now is really bad.
And here we are.
I've been buying bottled water for months now because water in central Harlem is disgusting right now.
That sucks.
It has been for months. And
dude,
closer to Riverside, where the rich ish white people live, like old and nice, it's still good. It might be a coincidence, but here in Central Harlem, it's been trashed for months. Like,
I'm sure it's absolutely a coincidence. There would never be.
Could be.
It's not possible.
I did the little home test for chemicals, and it seems like it is technically drinkable. But the taste is absolutely disgusting. Which it's fucking New York, man. Like,
we're supposed to have good water here. That's the whole thing. That I grew up with, like my parents basically being like New York water supremacists. They're like, we've got this like. I mean, when we were upstate, it would be like, it's because of the reserve. We've got that. But in New York City too, like the water is reputed to be quite good. It's pretty good in my house. I like it. I've been using it in my new seltzer maker. That sucks. That's not right.
I know.
Sucks, man.
I have been buying bottled water. I have to fucking make my coffee with bottled water. I have to boil like vegetables because it renders my coffee disgusting. It tastes like mud. Sorry, it's just
no, it's okay.
No, I'm angry for you. I know you need your coffee.
Let's take a break for an ad. And then we'll be right back.
Sean, we need to tell people about our Patreon.
I don't feel like it.
Why not? Why would we make one if we didn't want people to see it?
I just think they'll be overwhelmed.
Well, there is a lot of content on our Patreon.
Nicole? A lot of content? We have behind-the-scenes materials, early access to our short films, music videos, and podcasts, updates on current and future projects, video production and social media management training materials, a serialized sci-fi novel, personal writings, access to our award-winning films, small talk and meme, and other exclusive subscriber content. That's not even to mention all the other ideas we have.
Okay, maybe it is a lot.
And it all starts at just $2 a month. How much can people really handle at just $2 per month? And we update weekly. Weekly, Nicole.
Yeah, maybe it's too much to talk about now.
If they really feel motivated, I think it would be great for them to check out patreon.com/4milescircus and subscribe. There's even public posts available so they can get a taste for what we offer. But again, how much can people handle for as little as $2 a month?
I guess they'll just have to decide for themselves by going to patreon.com/4milescircus.
Yes, patreon.com/4, the word mile as in the distance, and circus as in where all the clowns are. All one word, no dashes or underscores.
There is just so much to be seen at patreon.com/4milescircus.
I'm so overwhelmed thinking about it, I'm going to cry. So we're back from our ads. That's wonderful.
You missed them.
I feel really advertised to. So I think we covered pretty well at least the start of like what to talk about with these. But do we think that the listeners might have something to say about this topic, about these movies, Nicole?
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, we want to hear it. Whatever you have to say. What other points of unity are there between Fury Road and Babe Pig in the City? How do these themes play out in other George Miller films?
Do you agree with like what I was saying about that? I kind of think that Fury Road is just an evolution of what Max was doing in the previous two films anyway. Or do you think that I'm just totally wrong and I don't know, that like Fury Road is just a travesty? Like
a spin-out series with just the Valvolini just planting seeds now that they're back at the Citadel, or like also a prequel of
That's
the
what I was
Green
thinking.
Place,
Yeah.
and all of that. Would you? If so, give me money. I'll make it.
What do you think about this idea that in Fury Road, nature is recast as a feminist space? And we didn't get into it, but how does that correspond to or contradict the problematic trope of women being closer to nature? We have a whole article that argues that it does not subscribe to that trope. And I tend to agree.
Is that a trope? That women are closer to nature?
Yeah.
Yeah, like Mother Nature and stuff like that.
We're just more connected, you know. We're just closer
Witchy
to nature,
shit.
a little less human than men who are just a little more evolved and
A little bit more magical.
Which really arguably
It's like the same thing
depends
that they
on-
do with like
yeah.
indigenous people, I guess.
Yeah.
Yes, 100%.
very related. And yeah.
100% the same thing.
Also,
But if
I
any-
have an absurd amount of plants in this house. So maybe it's ruined. Maybe it's my fault. I'm
That
sorry.
could just be you,
Listen,
though.
I have plants, but I kill them. I don't try to.
I
just
kill
can't
them
help
too.
it. Oh, look at this. It's a
You really
wonderland.
can't.
I
Oh, wow,
love it.
you too have a lot of plants.
You can't
I
see.
love it.
Many are hiding behind that and behind that. Not that many, but a few. And there's more
You got
in
a
the
lot of
office.
plants.
I do have a lot of plants, and I have more in the office.
I think, well, I don't have to show off my plants, but yeah, those are questions. Those are questions.
So it's my fault.
Mm-hmm.
We're, you know, I'm glad I have someone to blame. I'm just glad I can blame you.
See, there's a fucking plant growing out of my head, or I'm a peach. I'm not sure.
You're a
But one of
walking
the two.
stereotype.
It is my fault. I told you.
Why don't you break stereotypes like me and be in space with a bunch of lollipops?
I'm
That's
an
something they thought
enabler.
women couldn't do.
Couldn't do. I'm an enabler of the patriarchy, and everybody knows that about me.
It's
It's
true.
true.
I think
That's what we
one
talk
thing
about.
everybody can agree on.
That's what we talk about. You're like that, Yessica,
Meninist.
enabler of the patriarchy.
It's the first thing I tell people about you.
Is there anything that you would like to tell the people to look at of yours, Jessica?
No.
No?
No, not even my face.
What about your
No.
website?
Maybe your website if they want to hire the best DP?
Oh, sure. If I can be good at what I do. I like what I do.
You're
sometimes.
excellent at what you do.
You're excellent at what you do.
You guys seem to think that, and I appreciate it. I'm very grateful to you both for thinking that. I sometimes
Don't
feel
be
very
grateful
proud
to
of
us for anything, but especially not that. But I cut you off, so continue. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I like lighting and shooting. And yeah, if you want to hire me, I would be happy to work for you. Most of you, unless you're giving me a very racist, sexist script, then maybe I will pass. But otherwise, I'll probably be happy to.
What if it's only racist?
Oh, then sure. As a Mexican, I feel like it is my duty to just make, as long as it's xenophobic, you know, like
Oh yeah, totally.
I can make it work.
I hate Xenos.
If you would like to see some of Yessica's work, you can go to jessicacm.com. But also, she has shot some things that we've been involved with. She shot my segment for the Bring Us Your Women anthology about Joan of Arc and did an amazing job. She also shot the film Sanctuary that I co-directed with Jeanette Sears. And I could keep going. There are other projects I was involved with, but I was just trying to say director stuff. And there will be more coming.
I recently
More.
shot 2 shorts last year that I'm very proud of.
Are there places we can see them? Or
They're in post right
Okay.
now. Yeah. I gaffed small talk. Most of it, part of it.
you
The best
gaffed,
looking parts
I
of it.
believe 100% of small talk.
Thank
and
you, Sean.
honestly, there's that. But also, honestly, did a lot of other stuff on small talk as well. You were just, I can't imagine having made that film without you.
Oh.
You liked it. Do you remember how much people did not like that movie? You liked it.
I do. Yeah.
Thank you.
I do. I told my friend to watch it because actually one of the shorts that I shot last year is not at all the same, but there are like a couple of links maybe. And I was telling the director of it because we were shooting pickups yesterday. Sorry.
I
And
want to
was
see
like,
this
"Oh,
film.
You should fucking, yeah.
Because I saw the
think
other
that would be-
short. The other short you shot, I saw, but I did
Oh.
not see this one. Whatchamacallit?
this one is still-
Starters? Is that what
Starters. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
saw that.
Yeah. And this one is called Work. And it's still in the edit. We just shot some like other stuff yesterday, like pickup scenes. Not pickup scenes, like transition things. Anyway, yeah, when it's ready, I will fucking make sure to send it to you.
Please do. I like to see your things that you make.
Yeah, I like that one.
Cool. So, Sean, where can people find us?
Well, we're 4 Mile Circus. That's the number 4, the distance, mile, and circus where the clowns are, on the Twitters, on the Instagrams, and also info at 4milescircus.com. If you want to email us, 4milescircus.com is website stuff. Anchor.fm/the Celluloid Mirror. People can find this podcast, or on Apple and Stitcher and Breaker and all those other places, or Spotify. Also, we would love to hear from people who listen to the show. They can email us, as I said, info at 4milescircus.com. Contact us through the social medias, 4 Mile Circus. Tell us what they think of this episode, what they think of the questions, yada, yada. And Also on the anchor.fm site, there is a way to leave a voicemail message. So if you want to not have us read off what you said and just say it, you can leave it there. And I think that's it. And we'll see everybody next time. When
Not
we have,
me, though.
well,
yeah, we're not
you
going to
know.
see anybody, but Sean, I'll see you.
Or will you?
Well, and they won't see me.
Not with that across your
They
eyes, you
won't
won't.
see you. Yeah, so use
I like this filter.
Play
I
with
wish
your
I'd
Zoom
worn it
filters.
for the whole thing.
right? It's fun,
I
right?
wish I'd found it before, but then I saw the one with the little plant and it made me happy.
You gotta go for it.
I was gonna stick to this one.
They're both thematically appropriate because this is a pig, like Babe, and the other one was Growth, like the
Yeah.
Volvolini lady in Fury Road.
Ah!
With
Yes.
her,
There you go.
with her bag of
Yes.
seedlings.
Yes, I love her.
I do too.
She dies so peacefully too.
It's a good death.
Ah.
And we wish all of you a good death as well,
Anyway.
listeners.
Hey.
Someday. Bye.
Bye.
I ended up in that hall with nurse. There was another girl. She looked like me. Exactly like me.
Can you come with me, Jules?
That'll do. It happens when the story dies. The evil is set free.
I have to return some videotapes.